Hey guys, so I'm back with another podfic. This one is from the Amori fandom, so if you haven't played the game, please go play it before listening to this because this will contain some major spoilers. And there's also a trigger warning for this one. It'll have mentions of SH and suicide, so if you're not in a good space to hear that, please skip this video. And yeah, let's get into it. Don't Keep Me Waiting by SerBuckman. Summary. After some time recovering in the hospital, Sunny and Basil are soon to be sent home. Before Sunny finally leaves town, however, Basil sits down with him to talk about all the things they've been through and all that they've done. 4 years of pain can't be healed in a single conversation, but you have to start somewhere. Sunny had lost an eye. Basil has seen his eyes wrapped in bandages before when he first woke up in the hospital, but he hadn't had enough time to truly process their presence before Sunny was escorted away by nurses. Now, though, as the two look at each other from across the hospital cafeteria, he sees the eye patch Sunny has over his right eye and knows that it was his fault. The night of the fight was a blur in his mind, vague impressions. It was very late, and he hadn't slept at all beforehand. He remembered grabbing garden shears, as he had done more times than he would ever feel comfortable admitting, and tried to mentally prepare himself for the end. He might have actually gone through with it this time, had Sunny not entered the room. There was a struggle then. He remembered he was crying and shouting as the two weakly grappled, and Sunny was crying too. No, wait, he wasn't crying. He was bleeding from his eyes, because Basil had stabbed him. The thought weighs heavily on him as he stands frozen, gazing at his friend across the room. It's strange. He'd spent so long waiting for him to return from his self-imposed exile to the world, but now that he's here, all Basil wants to do is run and hide from him. But he knows he can't. Not now. There's too much left unsaid between the two. His arms itched, or most precisely, the scars on them seemed to itch. He feels his legs shake a little as he finally begins walking, absent-mindedly grabbing some food on the way. When he finally reaches Sunny's side, all he can do is manage a weak, hey. Oh, hey. Sunny's words are soft and quiet, almost whisper, like he's still adjusting talking to others. How are you feeling? I'm doing well. He fakes a smile, a skill he's gotten quite good at over the past 4 years. He glances over at the open seat across from him, wordlessly offering it for Basil to sit down. He sits, albeit reluctantly, and starts slowly prodding at the sandwich he had taken. Sunny has something before him, too, although it seems like he's been struggling to make much of a dent in it. Silence reigns between the two as he pecks at the lunch for what feels like hours to Basil, but which must have been less than an hour. He can't bear to look up now, can't bear to look at Sunny's one remaining eye. Words tumble through his mind, all the things he wants to, needs to say, overwhelm him like a flash flood. And yet, no matter how many times he tries, he forms them in his mind, thinks over how to word it, imagines himself saying it, he can't seem to get the words past his lips. They die somewhere in his throat, leaving it feeling more and more like constricted, even though he's choking on things that has been so long unsaid between them. Basil? Sunny breaks him out of his thoughts, and he realizes now that he must have been visibly shaking. Sunny, He breathes deeply and clenches his fist as he wills himself to meet Sunny's gaze, his expression concerned but expectant. He knows exactly what Basil needs to say. I'm sorry for causing you so much trouble, so much pain over these past 4 years. It's okay. I know you've only ever really wanted to help me. But all I do is hurt you. All I ever seem to do is hurt you. Even back when we were kids, when I forced you to hide the truth from everyone, when I gave you my photo album, when I stabbed you in the eye, when... Basil, He shifts his gaze away from Sunny and instead stares at something behind him. That day, The day Mari died, the fight was over your violin, wasn't it? You hated playing it, but you held that anger until you couldn't handle the pressure and smashed it, right? Basil, please. And it was my idea to get it to you in the first place, wasn't it? I convinced everyone to help pay for it. I just wanted you to be happy, but... He feels tears begin to well up and trickle down his cheeks. But all I did was ruin everything for you. Basil. Sonny rests a hand on Basil's hand to get his attention. He returns his gaze to his friend. His hand is cold, like a press of ice against Basil's hand. His remaining eye glistens in the light as tears begin to drip from it. Please, don't put this all on yourself. I know you're only doing it because you still don't want to believe that I was at fault for any one of it. I was the one who pushed her, the one who killed her. Silence fills the air between the two, the weight of truth still laying heavily on their shoulders. The day had been so exciting. Basil could barely contain his excitement for Sonny and Mari's recital. He had shown up in their house because their parents would give him a drive to the show. Their parents were not home at the moment, though, busy with their own preparations, so it was just the three of them alone. When Basil heard a crash and saw Sonny's violin shattered on the floor, he heard the two arguing, saw Sonny try to leave, then a scream, a crash, and then silence. But, he utters weakly, I stabbed you, Sonny. You'll never see out of that eye again. He squeezes Sonny's hand tightly and reluctantly locks eyes with him. How can you possibly forgive me? Sonny rests his hand on top of Basil's, clasping both of theirs firmly around his. He turns his eye down and looks at their hands, at the scars on Basil's forearms. All the pain I've caused. It feels like this was my punishment. Basil slowly turns his gaze down at his scarred arms, too. He had taken to hurting himself in such a manner a few years ago, a way to punish himself for everything he had done to others, as though his isolation and bullying wasn't punishment enough. He remembered the first time so vividly. He had been in the bathroom. The world felt like it was spinning. He could barely focus on all the noise buzzing in his head. Something was there, watching him as he reached for a pair of scissors in the vanity drawer. It cried as he started bleeding, cried out with Mari's voice, the same cry she made when she was pushed. He also notices something else, something he had missed before and isn't sure how. Sonny has scars on his arm, too. No, Basil says after a moment. No, you don't deserve to be hurt for what happened, especially not like that. I've thought that same way for the longest time. But after everything that's happened... He slowly pulls his hands out of Sonny's grip and reaches for his face, gently caressing his cheek and wiping the tear from his eye. You've already been through more pain than anyone deserves. A weak smile forms on Sonny's face, and he closes his eye. Basil thinks he must be taking time to enjoy such contact with someone after so many years of isolation. I wish I could stay, he says after a moment. We can't do this alone. We can still keep in touch. Basil keeps his hand on Sonny's cheeks as he speaks. A part of him feels awkward caressing his best friend's cheek in public, but he doesn't want to let go. I might not have a computer at home, but we could always exchange letters. I guess, Sonny mutters, and I could take the train to visit occasionally, though I'll need some time to adjust first. Yeah. Basil looks away a bit in shame. I would suggest you could drive, but with that injury, I'm not sure you could. Sonny smiles as he gently takes Basil's hand off his cheek. It's okay. I'm sure I can manage. The two return to silence, though this time there's no awkward tension between the two, just a comfortable silence, as meaningful as any words spoken between them. This is how it's always been between them, relaxing quietly after a long discussion. Basil wipes his tears away with a napkin. Sonny simply uses the sleeve of his hospital gown. The two return to eating as they think, almost having forgotten their half-finished meals. Basil begins slowly, do you think they'll ever forgive us? Sunny pauses for a moment. I don't know, but we have to trust that someday they will. Someday. And what if they never forgive us? Sunny closes his eyes. I wouldn't blame them. I wouldn't either, but I'm worried. He takes a moment to think about how to word his concerns. His friends, they'd been all hurt so much by him. How could they even stand to look at him now? I'm worried that Aubrey's bullying will get worse. I can take being abandoned, being ostracized, but what if it gets worse? Sunny finishes the thought for him. Aubrey is a good person, even if she tries to hide it. We'll just have to trust her in that. You're right. That reminds me. Do you still want me to have the photo album? I know you weren't really in a good place when you gave it to me, and he trails off, struggling to think of how to finish. Basil couldn't blame him. It wasn't an easy subject to bring up. He was right, though. He had only given the photo album away because he was already thinking about ending it, even before he knew Sunny was leaving and his grandmother passed away. Basil let out a sigh. I may not have been in a good state then, but I still want you to have it. You're moving, after all. You deserve something to remember us by. Sunny chuckles a little. You say that like I'll never see you again. I guess you're right, but still, I think you deserve to have it. Not like I'll need it anyways. I haven't even used my camera in years. It might not work anymore, he said. I haven't even touched the thing in maybe 2 years, he thinks to himself. Some days, it's been hard to even look at it. For so long, it, and the photos, have been a reminder of all the things that he lost, and likely would never regain. It never hurts to try. The album is your memories. Maybe it's time to start adding new memories to it. And besides, you and the others need something to remember Mari by, don't you? It's not like I don't have any other photos of her. He nods. Yeah, I suppose I could try. Basil! The two boys turned to look at the voice to see Polly walking towards them with a warm smile. Hey, Polly! The two say in unison. How are you two feeling? I'm doing a lot better, thanks, he smiles. Doctors say I should be able to go home soon. She likely already knows that, Basil thinks, after having said it. Maybe even part of why she's here. Fine. Getting used to this. Sunny gestures to his eye patch a little. They say it'll be permanent. Oh, Polly looks down at her feet a bit awkwardly. I'm not sure what to say, honestly. It's fine, Sunny says with a smile so subtle that Basil wonders if Polly can see it. After everything I've been through, I can manage. I suppose so, Polly says. Oh, Basil, could we step out and talk a little? Sure, he stammers a bit nervously, already knowing it might be something so important that they need to talk privately. His parents, or rather their absence. He had no doubt they'd be informed of his grandma's passing and his hospitalization, but as usual, they were nowhere to be seen. He stands up and looks back over at Sunny. I'll be back in a sec. He starts towards the door, but stops and glances when Polly isn't following yet. She leans over as Sunny says something to her, nods, then joins him. What was that? Nothing, she smiles and takes his hand. A few days later, Sunny takes Basil's hand as they walk together through the hospital. His hand is softer than before, Basil notices, and his grip a little firmer. The two finally got to put on their normal clothes and will be leaving soon. Basil glances at Sunny's collars a few times to see if any remains of the bloodstains are visible, but, unsurprisingly, the shirt has been very thoroughly cleaned. So, what's the place you're moving to like? Sunny shrugs a bit. My mom's talked about it a bit and showed me a few pictures, but to be honest, I never really paid attention, so I don't know. It's in the city, though, right? He nods a little. Hopefully it'll be a nice place at least. I'm sure it will be. My mom spent months looking for the right place. Basil smiles. Of course she did. There's a pause, a moment, as the two enter the reception room. Gray dominates the room, as every other color part of the hospital. Walls, ceiling, floor, almost everything is some shade of pale gray. Unlike the hospitals proper, however, the dullness is broken up by a few pieces of artwork on the walls. They see Sunny's mom and Polly on the other side of the room, discussing something between them, as Sunny's mom finishes signing papers. Are you going to tell her? Basil asks after a moment, turning to look at Sunny. Yeah, I just need to find the right time. What about you? I don't think I want my parents to talk about it. I'm not even sure if they remember who Mari is. He remembers the first time his parents came to visit after Mari's death, a rare Christmas visit, and their attempt at sympathy when they heard of Mari's passing from his grandmother. The words rang hollow to him, and still often do when they find the time to visit. Still, Basil can't help but feel they deserve to know the kind of person their son has become. I wasn't talking about them. He glances across the room to where Polly and Sunny's mom are talking. Sunny's mom, Debbie, glances over and sees the two staring at them. Tell Polly? I'm not sure, he sighs. I've kept her at arm's length for so long, despite all she's done. Maybe she deserves to know, but... His voice trails off. Sunny! His mom calls out as she approaches the two. Before Sunny can say anything, she's already pulling him into a hug, causing him to lose his grip on Basil's hand. Oh, I'm so glad to see you're finally up! Mom, he never finishes the sentence, instead simply embracing her for a few long seconds. When the two finally break their hug, Debbie looks over to Basil and smiles. Basil, it's been so long. How have you been? It's been years since he's seen her, beyond a few passing nights in places like Othermart, and he can tell the time is worn on her. Feeling better than I have in years, honestly, he smiles, and lucky to be here. Debbie smiles back. I'm glad to hear. She hesitates for a moment. I heard what happened with your grandmother. I'm so sorry for your loss. His smile falters. Thanks. He tries to think of something else to say, but all he wants to do is drop to his knees and beg for forgiveness, if he even deserves it. Sunny would be forgiven by her, because despite whatever mistakes he's made, she'll always love him. But Basil? She would probably have no issue deeming him to be nothing but a complete psychopath for what he's done. And what about Sunny's dad? Where is he even at this moment? Basil? He's shaken from contemplation by Polly, who seems a little uncomfortable inserting herself into clearly something personal. Are you ready to go soon? You can wait outside if you want. I won't be long. She nods and leaves. I'll be outside too, Debbie says. I know it's been so long since you two have spent time together. Once the two are gone entirely, Basil turns to Sunny. When do you think you'll come back to visit? The question hangs for a few long moments in silence. He can see the slight change in Sunny's expression, the look of concern in his eyes as he contemplates the future. I don't know. A year or two, maybe. We'll see. Just don't keep me waiting too long, okay? Basil smiles. Don't want a repeat of last time. He takes his hand again, almost without realizing he was doing it. It feels natural to him, this kind of closeness, especially with Sunny after 4 years of separation. He never seems to mind. Basil can only imagine how much he's been longing for any sort of attention from people beyond his mother. Maybe next time I'll stab you in the eye, and we can call it even. Basil chuckles. Just make sure it's my left eye so you can cover each other's blind spots. They both laughed, and for a moment, like all their worries have disappeared. They move towards the exit together, but stop short when a familiar group of 3 friends enter. Sunny, Basil, Cal says, seeming a bit surprised to come face to face with them at the entrance. Hey, guys, Basil replies. We're about to leave. Silence hung over them for a few long seconds. You could hear the wind rustling in the leaves outside and the hum of cars driving past. I know you might not want me to talk right now, but I want to thank you for being there for me. If you haven't, I might have. Aubrey looks like she wants to say something, but turns away instead. She's trying to hide her expression, but he can still see the pain in her face. Cal smiles, although Basil can tell it's forced. It's easy to tell when you've done it yourself so often before. Look, I know we've made some bad choices in the past, but even then, I know you would have done the same for us. Yeah. Cal. Sonny almost mutters and stares at his feet. Thank you for everything. Another quiet moment passes. Aubrey clenches and unclenches a fist. Hero seems to be struggling to find the right words. They're angry. Basil can easily tell that. Why wouldn't they be? The past 4 years, the pain they felt, the guilt, it was all built on the lie that Mari had killed herself. He wonders how often they felt as though they had some guilt in her supposed suicide, if they were worried they didn't do enough for her. Look, Basil finally breaks the silence. What we did, I wouldn't blame you if you never wanted to see us again. Cal puts a hand on his shoulder. Just give us some time, okay? Yeah, Hero finally speaks up. We'll be fine. Worry about yourselves a bit. Aubrey crosses her arms in front of her. After everything you've done, I wonder how you could live with yourself. Basil begins, but Sonny cuts him off before he can finish. I know this all seems so sudden, but we've been living with this for 4 years now. He looks up and reluctantly meets their gazes. Yeah, I guess so, Aubrey sighs. I can't imagine keeping something so awful a secret for so long. It makes sense you couldn't leave the house. He nods, but doesn't reply. We should probably get going, Basil says, sensing another awkward silence. Don't want to keep your mom waiting too long, Sonny. Yeah. He looks at the others one last time. Guess this is goodbye. Good luck with your new home, Kel says. I think a fresh start is exactly what you need. And, Basil, I guess I'll see you around. Basil nods. See you. He tugs on Sonny's hand lightly, and the two head out the door past their... Well, Basil isn't really sure what to call them anymore, really. They exit out into a clear, hot summer day. Above, the sky stretches onward, a perfect bright blue background in which the sun hangs almost directly overhead. The trees look bright and healthy. The flowers are blooming here and there. Basil thinks it seems like the perfect day for a walk in the park. He looks back briefly to see the others beginning to talk amongst themselves, likely about them. He turns away. He doesn't want to think about what they might be saying. He takes a deep breath and lets out a relieved sigh. Perfect weather today. It reminds me of when we used to go to the beach. Sonny nods. Yeah, it does. I remember watching you and Cal playing games in the water, and unusually dragging Hero into it. I always wished I could join, but I was too afraid to enter the water because, well, I guess you already know why. Sonny says nothing, maybe a bit too soon to talk about such things when they both nearly drowned so recently. Basil wonders. It isn't the first time he'd almost drowned in that lake, either, now that he thinks about it. Sonny, are you coming? Debbie calls their attention as she stands by her parked car. He also notices Polly parked nearby, digging around for something in the back seat. We should probably hurry up, Sonny says. Yeah, you're right. Sonny steps away a little, not wanting to be away yet, but clearly preparing to go. Wait, are you still sure you don't want the photo album? I'm sure. He turns away. These photos, they're your life, your memories, everything you care about. I know we've shared most of these memories together, but from here on, you're going to make a lot of memories on your own. He looks back, and I want you to keep adding to it, so when I come back, you can show me all the new ones you've made. I will. I promise. His vision blurs a bit as he feels his eyes water up, and he tries to keep his composure a little, worrying that crying in such a public area might be awkward for people around them. Thank you. I'll see you again. Basil begins to walk away, but stops after a few steps. He stands there for a moment, staring off in the direction of his mom. Before Basil can even begin to weather what he's thinking, he suddenly turns on his heel, grabs him in an unbreakable embrace. Basil, no matter what happens, you'll always be my best friend.
Sonny,
The words are lost on him as he breaks into a sob and throws his arms around his friend. He rests his head on Sonny's shoulder, and as he cries, tears pour out in a torrent he didn't even realize he could have mustered after how much he'd cried these past few days. A mix of emotions burst through his mind like a wave, so many contradictory thoughts he could barely parse: sorrow, joy, remorse, longing, comfort. He had known this day was coming for a while. He had thought he'd made peace with it already, but now he wishes this moment would never end. He's so wrapped up in the moment, he almost misses the sound of a photo being taken. He glances over and sees, through his blurred vision, Polly holding his camera. That must have been what Sonny had asked her about, bringing it here to get him to start using it again. I have to go, Sonny muttered after a moment, his tone clearly sharing in the tears. His hold loosens a little. I don't want to let go. I know. He slowly moves out of Basil's embrace, and his remaining eye meets his friend's gaze. He wipes a tear from his eyes. I know. You're afraid. I am too, but you have to keep strong. I know you can do it. Basil smiles weakly, wipes a few tears from his face, and nods. Sonny turns and begins walking towards the car, for real this time. As he does, Polly approaches and puts a comforting hand on Basil's shoulder. She pulls out a tissue and handed it to him to help wipe up all the tears before holding out the camera. I hope you don't mind the picture I took. It's okay. My friends used to take my camera and take photos of me all the time. Especially Mari, he thought. He takes the photo out of the camera and looks at it. Him and Sonny's embrace captured for prosperity. Thank you. This is perfect. He slipped it in his pocket and looked up, seeing Sonny standing by the door of his mom's car. He briefly turned back, smiled, and waved to Basil. In that moment, even without thinking, he lifted the camera and took a picture. Then he was gone, entering the car and turning away. Basil pulled the photo out and took a long look at it. Despite the pain, despite the injury, despite everything, in that moment Sonny looked overflowed with joy in a way Basil never would have thought he would see from his best friend since that happened that day 4 years ago. Looking at his smile, Basil feels something in his heart, a yearning he hadn't felt in a long time. That's a nice photo, Polly comments. His smile is beautiful, don't you think? He rarely ever smiles, so I couldn't miss the chance to save this. He puts the photo in his pocket alongside the other one, and knows that they belong in the photo album alongside his other cherished memories. Before Polly can respond to his question, he turns around and gives her a hug. Thank you for everything you've done. I know I've been a bit distant these past few years, but I'm grateful to have you around. Basil, I know you've been going through a lot. She returns his embrace with her own. If there's anything you ever need, just talk to me, okay? I will. I promise. He breaks from the embrace and looks back to where Sonny had been and sees the familiar figure standing under the shade of a tree just across the hospital entrance. She smiles at him, but before he can process what he sees, a bus passes by and she's gone. His eyes naturally drift to the sky, so clear today it seems like the light blue space that had stretched for eternity. 4 years of pain and misery, of hiding the truth, were finally over, and only now does he finally appreciate what it truly means to have a second chance at life, a chance to start over, free of all the burden which had crushed him and left him hopeless for so long. He had nearly died twice to get here, though, once by Aubrey's hand, and once by his own. Perhaps, he ponders as he watched some birds fly overhead, this is Mari's last gift to me. I promise I won't squander this chance, Mari. I'll live my life for you, and for Sonny. He looks down and smiles at Polly. "I'm ready to go home now,"